Far from being a unique piece of bad luck, such accidents were common enough in those days in Mexico City to be depicted in numerous retablos. Buses were new to the city, and because of their novelty, they were jammed with people while trolley cars went empty. Then, as in now, they were driven with toreador bravado, as if the image of the Virgin of Guadalupe dangling near the front window made their driver invincible. The bus in which Frida was riding was new, and its fresh coat of paint made it look especially jaunty. The accident occurred in late afternoon on September 17th, 1925, the day after Mexico had celebrated the anniversary of its independence from Spain. A light rain had just stopped. The gray, grand government buildings that bordered the Zocalo looked even grayer and more severe than usual. The bus to Coyoacan was nearly full, but Alejandro and Frida found seats together. It was a strange collision, Frida said. It was not violent, but rather silent, slow, and it harmed everybody, and most of all me. The girl whose wild dash through school corridors resembled a bird's flight, who jumped on and off streetcars and buses, preferably when they were moving, was now immobilized and enclosed in a series of plaster casts and contraptions. These are passages from Hayden Herrera's renowned book, Frida, a biography of Frida Kahlo. Hi everyone, I'm Gonzalez-Gibson, the leading lady of Kaleidoscopes and Polka Dots, where I sell handmade vintage-inspired jewelry that honors Hispanic American heritage. Welcome if you're new here. If you are, please subscribe to my newsletter. They are the first to know whenever new live streams are scheduled. They also receive free discount codes and free downloads. Free discount codes are free for everyone. They also receive free downloads. When you sign up, you'll receive a free download with a beautiful quote from Frida Kahlo. I hope you love them. I love them. I make them into postcards. I put them into my crafts. I love them. They are inspirational. So, what was I going to say? Oh, here we are. I forgot to say this. I hope you can read this because I can't now with my glasses on. But, yeah. Thank you so much for your time. It really means the world to me. It means so much to me, and I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. So the reason that I am doing these as live stream is because since I last started this series, which was about 2 years ago now, AI content has basically taken over, and I don't know about you, but I am not a big fan of AI content, not in terms of watching it. I do use AI from time to time to edit things and word stuff, but AI content is just not my jam, and I really prefer a raw, more unedited, more unfiltered video these days, even if it is long. Although, of course, this video will also be segmented into smaller bits because, you know, sometimes we just want to go back to that bit. And of course, there will be chapters. If you are interested, I will, of course, republish them. And once they are republished, I will send them to my newsletter subscribers. So that's another incentive for signing up to my newsletter. Now, let's move on with this show. Before we get started on talking about the accident, let's set the stage because as one of my favorite YouTubers says about fashion, her channel name is The Ultimate Fashion History. Fashion is not an island, it is a response. And such is also true for what happened to Frida Kahlo. This accident, I think the day of the accident and following the accident, a lot of things happened that really shouldn't have happened, but they happened because of the time that she was living in. These days, some of these things probably wouldn't have happened. But infrastructure was still very new. Like the trains, the buses, they were also very new. And that is one of the reasons why things happened as they did. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's move on to the next one, which is movies. So Frida Kahlo was a a moviegoer. Most people in those times were moviegoers. They loved movies. It was a new form of entertainment, and oh my goodness, there's a reason why. It was completely and utterly breathtaking and fun. So the person that you're looking at here is Dolores del Rio, and she was known and is often regarded as the very first major female that crossed over Hollywood. She's a Mexican artist. She comes from aristocracy, and she was discovered around the early 20s. She moved to Hollywood in 1925, and there she was a silent movie star. I think this era, and this is not me really diving into her story, but at this time, she had the opportunity to really learn the language, to really immerse herself into the United States. And so once talkies came, once regular movies came, then she was able to easily transition in Hollywood from silent films to talkies. And honestly, it's incredible because many artists, many native English speakers weren't able to make that transition because either their voice didn't fit the mold that Hollywood was looking at. There's always this ideal body type, this ideal vision of the perfect woman. And at the time, she was just able to seamlessly move over to talkies. And then when she got tired of that, she moved back to Mexico and she became the queen of Mexican cinema, basically. I will talk about her in another video. Clearly, I love movies. I love studying fashion and history and cinema, and there will be more to come on this story. But moving on to something that might be a little bit more relevant, and that is the president of Mexico. The Mexican president was Plutarco Elias Calles, and he was voted into office in 1924. Shortly before his inauguration, Calles traveled to Germany and France to study social democracy and the labor movement. In Germany, he learned the importance of a solid infrastructure and industry. He also realized the power of strong, organized labor movement. As a result of his findings, he took initiatives during his presidency to fortify Mexico's infrastructure and build a road network that linked major cities and small villages. Calles focused on improving health and hygiene of Mexican citizens, for he understood that a country is only as strong as its citizens. He gave the issue prominence by creating a cabinet-level position of public health. The ministry was in charge of promoting vaccination against communicable diseases, improving portable water access, sewage and drainage systems, and inspecting restaurants, markets, and other food providers. In 1926, Sanitary Code ordered mandatory vaccination and empowered the government to implement other measures for sanitation and hygiene. Also, part of the program was the mandatory registration of prostitutes. So, at this point in Frida's life, she has already struggled with a bout of polio, which is one of the reasons why she had a pegged leg, a leg that was smaller than the other. And I think that it had a lot to do with the hygiene system at the time as well. So that is interesting. And while I will cover some of the injuries that she suffered, while she covered those initial injuries, some of the operations that she underwent weren't completely successful, and future surgeries, operations, procedures, diagnoses, while some were good, others weren't so good. I've read another book where the outline of her injuries just grows over time. It was incredibly sad, and I think a lot of it had to do with just the lack of understanding of what or how to treat certain injuries, certain syndromes, whatever it is that she was going through. So let's look at something that I think is quite interesting, and that is the wage of the time. So as you can see, the wage in Mexico at the time was around 73 pesos per month. Frida, at an early age, realized the importance of money. At an early age, she started wanting to work. She worked with her dad. She helped him do stuff because they were a family of 6 children, and then the mom and the dad. Matilde and Guillermo had 4 children, 4 biological children, and then he also had 2 daughters from his first marriage, and they just made ends meet with 1 income, regardless of what he was doing, which he started off as an accountant. Then he transitioned over to photography. Through photography is one of the ways in which Frida got into art. But she saw the need for making money and the importance of making money. And I think while she felt limited by everything that she underwent, it was also one of the catalysts for really pushing her to really immerse herself in art and make something out of that. So I just wanted to show that for that reason. Now, let's talk about the president of the United States at the time, because he, I think, is also of import. So the president of the United States at the time was President Calvin Coolidge. He is known as a small government conservative. During his presidency, the United States experienced the Roaring 20s, and I think worldwide as well, because it was not just an economic era, it was the fashion of the time. While his presidency is attributed to this economic boom, it's also faulted for the Great Depression, because a lot of the things that he implemented could have been the result of just neglectful, terrible business decisions on a worldwide stage. All right, so we've set the stage. Now back to talking about the accident. And each of them, each Frida and Alejandro Gomez Arias, have their own version of the accident. First, I will read Frida's version of the accident, and then we'll talk about Alejandro's. Frida, a little while after we got on the bus, the collision began. Before we had taken another bus, but since I had lost a little parasol, we got off to look for it, and that was how we happened to get on the bus that destroyed me. The accident took place on the corner in front of San Juan Market, exactly in front. The streetcar went slowly, but our bus driver was a very nervous young man. When the trolley car went around the corner, the bus was pushed against the wall. I was an intelligent young woman, but impractical, in spite of all the freedom I won. Perhaps the reason I did not assess the situation, nor did I guess the kind of wounds I had. The first thing I thought of was a bolero, a Mexican toy, with pretty colors that I had bought that day and that I was carrying with me. I tried to look for it, thinking that what had happened would not have major consequences. It was a lie that one is aware of the crash, a lie that one cries. In me, there were no tears. The crash bounced us forward, and a handrail pierced me the way a sword pierces a bull. A man saw me having tremendous hemorrhage. He carried me and put me on a billiard table until the Red Cross came for me. Now, Alejandro Gomez Arias' version goes as follows. The electric train with 2 cars approached the bus slowly. It was the bus in the middle. Slowly, the train pushed the bus. The bus had a strange elasticity. It bent more and more, but for a time it did not break. It was not a bus with it was a bus with long benches on either side. I remember that at one moment my knees touched the knees of the person sitting opposite me. I was sitting next to Frida. When the bus reached its maximal flexibility, it burst into 1,000 pieces. The train kept moving. It ran over many people. I remained under the train, not Frida. But among the iron rods, the handrail broke and went through Frida from one side to the other at the level of the pelvis. When I was able to stand up, I got out from under the train. I had no lesions, only contusions. Naturally, the first thing I did was to look for Frida. I picked her up. In those days, I was a strong boy, and then I noticed with horror that the Frida had a piece of iron in her body. A man said, "We have to take her out." He put his knee on Frida's body and said, "Let's take it out." When he pulled it out, Frida screamed so loud that when the ambulance from the Red Cross arrived, her screaming was louder than the sirens. Before the ambulance came, I picked up Frida and put her in the display window of a billiard room. I took off my coat and put it over her. I thought she was going to die. 2 or 3 people died at the scene of the accident. Others died later. The ambulance came and took her to the Red Cross hospital, which in those days was on San Jeronimo Street, a few blocks from where the accident took place. Frida's condition was so grave that the doctors did not think they could save her. They thought she would die on the operating table. Now, I think this next image is a bloody image of Frida Kahlo, and so I want to just give you a quick word of caution. It's not an actual picture of Frida Kahlo. It's a still from the movie, and she's completely covered, but it's still a little graphic. And that is what they call the bailerina. Of Frida's injuries, Hayden Herrera writes, her spinal column was broken in 3 places in the lumbar region. Her collarbone was broken, and her 3rd and 4th ribs. Her right leg had 11 fractures, and her right foot was dislocated and crushed. Her left shoulder was out of joint. Her pelvis broken in 3 places. The steel handrail had literally skewered her body at the level of the abdomen. Entering on the left side, it had come out through the vagina. Of this, Frida says, I lost my virginity. Of course, she was not a virgin at this time, but metaphorically speaking, yeah, she did lose her virginity. So that is it for covering the accident. Next time, I will cover more about Alejandro's relationship with Frida, how it evolved. And I think it helps us understand Frida a little bit better in terms of her passion and her perspective on love. She was deeply in love with Alejandro Gomez Arias, and yet so many things happened. And then she gets into a really strong relationship with Diego. So there's a lot to be said about how everything happened. I hope you enjoyed this video. Before I go, I want to share with you, invite you to, no, not sign up to my newsletter, although yes, sign up to my newsletter, but also, please, this is a presidential year. I mean, every year is an important year to go out and vote, but this will be the very first year that I personally get to go out and vote, because last year I became a U.S. citizen. Yes, sound the alarms, sound the applause. I am so excited to finally go out and vote. But I will also have a link in the description for the vote.gov website. It's free to register, and then just, remember to go out and make your voice heard and known and sound it out, because it matters. Your voice matters. It deserves to be heard. I truly believe that. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you again very soon. Bye.